Fact number 1, breakfast on the trail was grueling work. Speaking of, breakfast on the road meant something entirely different for westward pioneers than for people today. It certainly wasn't Starbucks and a bagel. Traveling in a wagon train required waking up at about 4 o'clock in the morning to prepare breakfast, break camp, saddle up the horses, and round up the cattle. Coffee and bacon were staples. The women folk stirred up the fire so they could roast green coffee beans in a skillet. The roasted beans were put through a coffee grinder, then brewed with water over the open fire. And I complained that my Keurig takes too long. Slabs of bacon were tossed in the skillet and fried up. On a good day, you might also get some cornmeal gruel. Bacon wasn't just morning candy, it was such a mainstay. Pioneers ate it 2 or 3 times a day. Well-smoked and cured bacon could, in theory, last the whole journey. I'm skeptical. Fact number 2. Frontier folks embraced poop-powered cooking. Know what the Great Plains didn't have? Trees. Know what the Great Plains had a lot of? Buffalo poop. Since trees are a rarity in the prairies of the Great Plains, folks had to get creative with ways to fuel their campfires, so they turned to dried buffalo dung. Seriously, as gross and unsanitary as that seems, it got the job done. When burned, the meadow pies, as they were called, produced a quick, hot, and, shockingly, odorless fire, perfect for cooking that bacon. The prairie chips were plentiful and easy to pick up. The secret was to look for ones that had dried out in the hot sun, and not the juicy, steamy, fresh one. Fact number 3. The Army declared war on buffalo. The United States Army declared war on buffalo in the 1830s. They commissioned people to go west and slaughter as many buffalo as they could, and encouraged settlers in the west to do the same. What did the buffalo do to bring the wrath of Uncle Sam down on them? Nothing, except for being a delicious major food source for Native Americans. White Americans, in a total jerk move, wanted to oust the Native Americans from their ancestral homes and take the land for themselves. Since the Native Americans weren't exactly on board with this plan, the government decided to go after their most valuable resource, buffalo. It's been estimated that there were between 10 and 30 million buffalo in the early 1800s. By 1889, only 256 buffalo remained, and they were in captivity. Fact number 4. The West had strict gun control laws. Hollywood movies would have us think that folks in the Old West ran around with their guns half-cocked, ready to bite the bullet and jump in lock, stock, and barrel with guns ablazing whenever they dodged a bullet. The reality is that most Old West towns had super strict gun laws, even notorious boomtowns like Deadwood, Dodge City, and Tombstone. It was illegal to carry a gun within the city limits of these towns and others. Anyone coming into town was required to stop at the sheriff's office and check in their guns before settling in. It was the Old West version of a coat check, except America doesn't have a coat control problem. Go figure. Fact number 5. Requirements for sheriffs were pretty loose. In the Old West, as it is today, sheriff was an elected position, and not a particularly appealing one. The pay was paltry, if there was one at all. Sometimes a sheriff only received a percentage of the fines he imposed on people, or taxes collected from locals. Does anyone else think a system like this is just inviting corruption? Each state or territory had their own requirements for sheriff, and none of them had anything to do with experience, education, or background checks. Most places only required that a man be 21 years old or older and a United States citizen, and no one really checked on that last part. Some states had no requirements at all. Take Texas, for example. The 1876 Texas Constitution only noted that sheriffs were to serve 2-year terms. Nothing at all was mentioned about age, citizenship, gender, race, or previous criminal record. That's how Moses Burton, an African American, was elected sheriff of Fort Bend County in 1869, a year before the 15th Amendment granted African Americans the right to vote. Burton was the country's first black sheriff. Fact number 6. The Old West was a place of unexpected friendships. In the harsh and unforgiving landscape of the Old West, where daily life was a constant struggle for survival, one might expect people to be at odds with each other. Yet, a surprising fact about this era is that it often brought together individuals from diverse backgrounds and walks of life, fostering unexpected friendships. Amidst the challenges and dangers of the frontier, people had to rely on each other in ways that transcended societal norms. Outlaws and lawmen occasionally found common ground, working together to defend a town from bandits or protect it from hostile forces. The Old West was a place where Native Americans and settlers sometimes formed alliances, learning from each other's knowledge of the land and survival skills. It wasn't uncommon to see people from different racial and ethnic backgrounds sharing a campfire, trading stories, and helping one another in times of need. This spirit of cooperation and mutual support, despite the hardships of the frontier, serves as a reminder that in even the toughest of circumstances, human connections and friendships can flourish, defying the expectations of the time. As we reflect on these fascinating facts about the Old West, it's clear that this chapter of American history was filled with remarkable stories and untold nuances. It's a reminder that the past is a rich tapestry of events and individuals, each contributing their unique thread to the fabric of history.